Hey everyone, it's Reptile Sam. So today I wanted to talk to you about two issues in one because I couldn't really think of a way to talk about one without the other. So the two issues that we're talking about today are conservation, such as captive bred versus wild caught reptiles, as well as reptile shows. And so I'm here with my buddy Herman. Herman is my boa constrictor imperator, and he is about 7, 8 months old. And he was really sick when I first got him, and he was from a reptile show, but he's doing great now. He had a great vet, and he's thriving again. And so I was talking to my two really cool nephews the other day, Joseph and Andrew. And so I was telling them about conservation and why, in this day and age, it's really good to try getting your reptiles captive bred and born. And so what that means is that both of your reptiles' parents were in captivity, so they were bred in captivity, and the reptile was born in captivity. So sometimes you will see snakes listed as CB something. That only means that they were captive born. If you see CBB, that means they were captive bred and captive born. So the difference being that, for example, the easiest one I can think of is green tree pythons and Amazon tree boas are frequently found on farms in their native locations. And I know that we wouldn't have them in captivity today if it weren't for their original the first one that we had in captivity. I'm sure there's a scientific word for that. The same with my boa constrictor, same with our corn snakes, same with our king snakes. Any reptile that we have in captivity at some point was wild caught. But now that they're being captive bred and born, let's keep it that way, okay? So I know a lot of people, this is an uncommon opinion, and a lot of people still go herping and find such and such locality pine snake, such and such locality rat snake, such and such locality king snake, and they take them in and they breed them to try getting a nice, beautiful reptile bred. Um, we have plenty of ball pythons. Ball pythons first came from Africa, where they were native, but we have so many captive bred and born ball pythons now, there's no need to get wild caught ball pythons anymore. There are hundreds, maybe hundreds of thousands, I don't know, of ball pythons being bred in captivity, so they don't need to be taken from the wild anymore. So now that they're like that, let's keep it within captive bred and born snakes, okay? So one of the things I want to talk about is how do we know when it's good to stop taking animals from the wild? And there really is no good answer because it's not a good practice. If someone at some point hadn't taken a boa constrictor and started breeding them captively, I wouldn't have Herman today, right? If someone hadn't taken a corn snake out of the wild, we wouldn't have pet corn snakes. So, yeah, it's a very hard subject to really put a finger on, but with as many snakes as we have now that are being captive bred, there's no real reason to take wild-caught reptiles anymore. This is especially true with your South American and Indonesian, Australian reptiles. But a lot of people are still taking king snakes, especially from desert regions, Texas, Arizona, Nevada, California, and trying to breed for a specific locality. And there's different ethics behind that, and I personally don't see any reason that we need to keep doing that. I think there are plenty of reptiles in captivity already, so we don't need to continue taking animals from the wild to breed and to keep as pets. This guy's a beautiful snake. He was captive bred and born. We don't need more wild-caught reptiles. So that brings me to the issue of reptile shows. So I have been to several Repticons, all at the same location, so maybe they're different in other states, other regions. I'm sure other reptile shows are better. And so the first snake I bought, and it was my fault for not being educated enough on what I was buying, but I bought a solid black, absolutely stunning eastern hognose snake. So if you're an more advanced in herpetology than I am. I'm sure you're thinking, oh, those aren't bred in captivity. I didn't know that at the time. I bought her, I brought her home. I assumed wrongly that she would be like Western Hognose and she'd be easy to keep. That's not the case. Eastern Hognoses, their diet is kind of like a gray-banded kingsnake, where they will almost exclusively eat reptiles and amphibians in the wild, and I couldn't get her to eat a frozen-thawed mouse for anything. I tried scenting it with frog legs, I tried giving her frog legs, braining, so we have to like pike the food to try to make it smell more enticing. Nothing would work. So I eventually reached out to the South Carolina Herpetology Society. I've heard good things about them, and they stated that those snakes were not bred in captivity, and they were unaware of any eastern hognoses being bred in captivity. So I did what I thought was like the only right thing to do, and I turned her over to a rescue center where she's now being kept, and she's being fed an appropriate diet of toads and frogs, eat whenever she needs them, and from last I've heard, she's doing very well there. And so be careful who you buy from. Places like Repticon don't vet their sellers at all. I've sent multiple emails to them trying to tell them about what happened. The guy who sold that snake to me, I looked him up to try to see if I could get a refund or anything. He actually was indicted on charges for smuggling turtles to China. So he's not a good person. They don't vet their people at all. Herman I got from people who acted like they were really nice and, knew what they were doing, which I'm sure they do. But he had mites when I got him. He got real sick. He had a respiratory infection. He just wasn't doing well at all, and I didn't realize it at the time. I handled him, and he seemed like he's okay. I didn't notice the mites. He got real sick. Now, the mites could have been from his bedding or something like that, since I didn't see them when I first got him. But that being said, so with seeing how those shows don't vet who's selling there, I personally will not be buying any more reptiles from reptile shows. I am now sticking with breeders who I can contact directly, such as when I bought Brick, my California king snake. I contacted Chromatic Critters, and I was able to get him, and we talked about him. She wanted to know where he'd be living, and we got that worked out, and it was a great experience. So, at least to the Repticons I've been to, I do not recommend buying your reptiles there. Maybe you can go and meet some breeders that you like, but then go do research on them, and go make sure that they're not actually a breeder, not just someone trying to flip snakes for a profit and don't know anything about the snake itself. Ask a lot of questions. If you do go, ask tons of questions. Make sure you're not buying wild-caught animals. So that's pretty much what I wanted to tell you guys today. Just to be really careful about who you're buying from, and make sure that they're coming from a reputable breeder who is using captive bred and born stock rather than wild-caught stock. And I know that that's kind of, people have different opinions on that, but the way I see it personally is that there have been enough generations of snakes bred and born in captivity that we can completely phase out and stop taking animals from the wild. And I know people will disagree with me. People will probably be upset that I'm saying that, but I think that's just fair to the animals and to our ecosystem. These animals need to be where they are in the wild, and we have captive bred snakes like Herman, who would not do well in the wild. He's never been in the wild. He doesn't know how to survive out there. He knows how to feed from his frozen thawed mice and rats that he eats in my house. That's fine. But these animals that are from the wild, I think we have enough snakes in captivity now where we can just work with what we have and breed what we have. And I'm not a breeder, so that's just my 2 cents worth as a keeper of snakes as opposed to a breeder of snakes. If you want to discuss this matter, feel free to drop me a line in the comments. Subscribe to my channel. Go check me out on Instagram. My handle is reptile.sam. I'd be happy to talk more about this matter with you. Let me know if you have questions. But that's my 2 cents worth on both captive bred and born reptiles as opposed to wild-caught reptiles, as well as not buying snakes at reptile shows. So remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. This is Herman, I'm Sam, and we'll see you guys later.